is going on, college basketball fans? Today we do have an updated Joe Lunardi bracketology that came out this morning. So you know what that means. We are going to take his updated bracketology, put it into our own PDF bracket, and fill it out from the first round all the way to the national championship. And we come out with updated versions of this video every single Tuesday weekly. So make sure you guys subscribe if you guys are new, because not only do we have these coming out weekly, but we have daily college basketball and March Madness coverage here on the channel. So make sure you guys hit that sub button, hit that like button if you guys enjoy, and open to all my subscribers if you guys want to join. I do have a group on ESPN Tournament Challenge called Dannyology TC. You guys can search that up on the app and join, or you can hit the link in my description. I'll have a link where you guys can join my group as well. Open to all subscribers. All I do ask is that you hit that sub button if you guys want to join. It helps support the channel, helps me out a lot. So let's go ahead and get started with our bracket predictions. So to start us off, we do have our top overall seed, the Alabama Crimson Tide, versus 16 seed, either Morehead State or Alcorn State, in the first four game. And in that first four game, I am going to go ahead and take Morehead State to defeat Alcorn State, and then I am going to have Alabama defeat Morehead State in the first round and advance to the round of 32. I just think Brandon Miller, he has been on a tear lately, dropped 41 against South Carolina, played really good against Arkansas. He is legit, and I'm going to have him and his squad of really good guards. They have an all-around great lineup, and Alabama moving on to the next round over Morehead fairly easily. Next up, we do have in our 8-9 matchup, Iowa versus NC State. Now, this is a interesting matchup because Iowa, very inconsistent. I know they have a really good player in Chris Murray on their team, and their backcourt is very, fiery. Like, if they catch fire, they could, win a game or two come March Madness. But I don't know if I trust this Iowa team. I think this will be a close game, a really good game, but I trust a more reliable backcourt, one of the most underrated backcourts in college basketball, in Joyner and Smith, there with NC State, a lot more than I trust a Iowa team that consistently chokes in March Madness. So give me the Wolfpack to move on to the next round. Next up, we do have our 5 seed San Diego State versus our 12 seed Oral Roberts. Now, San Diego State has been on a tear lately. They definitely deserve a 5 seed. The Mountain West is a very good league, and San Diego State's been playing very good in it. They actually play Boise State on the road tonight. That's going to be a great game. But then you have Oral Roberts, and Oral Roberts is the last remaining Division I team that is undefeated in conference play. So they are undefeated in their conference, sitting here at a 12 seed. We all know the history of 12s upsetting 5s, and we also know Oral Roberts has made the Sweet 16 from a 15 seed a couple of years ago. And I think Maxi Buckets, along with some really good help on this year's team, I think a better team than he had a few years ago when they made the Sweet 16. I'm going to take Oral Roberts here to get an upset over San Diego State in the round of 64. Give me Oral Roberts to move on. Next up, we do have 4-seeded Indiana going up against 13-seeded Southern Miss. Now, Southern Miss, I'm a Marshall fan, so I don't like Southern Miss. I'm hoping Marshall gets into the tournament over them. However, they are a pretty good team. Are they going to be enough to beat Indiana? I don't think Southern Miss has played a team as good as Indiana yet this season, so they're not tested in that regard. I think Trace Jackson Davis will have a big game against Southern Miss, and Xavier Johnson coming back, along with Jalen Hood-Schifino, who has really stepped up in his absence. I'm going to take the Hoosiers to move on here past Southern Miss pretty easily. Next up, we do have Kentucky going up against either Wisconsin or Arizona State. So in that first 4 game, I am going to take Wisconsin to get it done. I think Wisconsin, they're more reliable. They have some more tournament experience. They're with Greg Gard as their head coach. And I'm going to take Wisconsin here. I think that the way they play defense, Wall could get going in this game. He's the type of player that I know would be playing super hard in March Madness. They make it to the round of 64 in the first 4 game, but then I'm going to have them lose to the Kentucky Wildcats in the next round, because I just think Kentucky, they're actually turning up right now at the right time. Sister Jean actually picked them to win the championship at this point, so maybe Sister Jean, revealed the script there. I'm not sure, but all I know is Oscar Tshiebwe is playing outstanding right now, and this Kentucky team is playing the best they have all season right now. And Kassan Wallace there at the point guard position, Shavir Wheeler, they got some really good guards, Jacob Toppin. Like, these players are starting to step up. They're starting to play more as a team. Look out for Kentucky as a sleeper. I have them moving on to the next round. Next up, we do have Marquette as our 3 seed going up against Colgate, the toothpaste, in it again. And you can't sleep on Colgate. Colgate's a pretty solid squad, but Marquette, the way that they have been dominating the Big East lately and running away with that league, I have to take Marquette here to win this one. I can't have them being upset by a toothpaste brand. We're going to have Marquette move on. Next up, we do have the Duke Blue Devils going up against USC in the 7-10 matchup. I think this would be a fun matchup, a really good matchup, and I'm going to trust Duke actually to get a win here in March. I think Duke can get it done. Their freshmen, some of their freshmen like Derek Lively, Derek Whitehead, they haven't really performed to what we thought that they would be at the beginning of the year, but they have been playing better as of late. Derek Lively is a really good rim protector. Kyle Flipowski is a really good scorer on this team, and Jeremy Roach is a really good leader. I think that leadership helps, especially with his defense on Boogie Ellis in this game. Give me Duke to move on past USC and make it to the next round. Next up, we do have Texas versus Kennesaw State. And Kennesaw State, they could be a sleeper as a 15 seed, but I think Texas, I had them losing to Youngstown State in my last bracket. It was a big upset. It was for fun, but I do think this Texas squad is going to be pretty scary in March. They have some really good athletic bigs. Dylan Mitchell at the small forward position. They got Timmy Allen. They have Dylan Dessou, Christian Bishop. Like, really, really athletic bigs, along with a awesome backcourt in Tyrese Hunter and in Marcus Carr. And they also have, in my opinion, probably the sixth man of the year in college basketball in Sabiri Rice. So I think that Texas, very slept on to go far this year in March. I know they're a 2 seed, but I don't hear many people talking about Texas going real far. Maybe it's because of the whole Chris Beard situation, but they have a solid roster this year, and I'm going to have them move on. Next up, let's go over to our next region, where we do have Houston going up against UNC Asheville, and I am going to have Houston win this game. You guys know, Houston, I'm very, very high on them going far this year. They're just so good. They have so many good 3-and-D players, a super good backcourt, one of the best backcourts in the country, a really good freshman in Jarris Walker who can shoot, dribble as a power forward, like so good. And Houston, they're definitely getting past UNC Asheville, even though I do think Asheville is a pretty strong 16 seed, probably the best 16 seed out of any of them. Houston shouldn't have any problem getting past them. Next up, we do have Texas A&M going up against Illinois. Now, this is a pretty interesting matchup. Illinois, they have some good forwards on that team, but Texas A&M, they have a good backcourt, and they've been playing really good in conference play. The only problem is out of conference, like before SEC play, Texas A&M hasn't really been playing, that great. And Illinois was a team, they're kind of the opposites. They're like mirror opposites, where Illinois, they played really good out of conference. They have really good out of conference wins over UCLA and Texas. But in conference in the Big Ten, they haven't really been playing that great. So I'm going to go with the team who's been playing good out of conference, but maybe not been playing as good as of recently. But I also think has the more talented roster, and that is Illinois. I think Terrence Shannon Jr., Matt Mayer, they're going to get going in this game, and I have Illinois moving on to the round of 32. Next up, we do have TCU going up against 12-seeded Bradley. I'm surprised that Bradley is up at the 12 seed line here, but they could actually maybe be a sleeper in March Madness. I would maybe look out for Bradley. I definitely have to do my own personal research on their team and watch some of their games in their conference tournament and see if they come out. But I am going to take TCU. I think TCU going up against a team like Bradley, too athletic, too fast-paced. They like to get steals, get out in transition, and get some buckets. So I'm a big fan of TCU this year. I know they've been struggling as of late, but they're still getting Mike Miles back into the lineup. They're 2-1. Their only loss since Mike Miles has been back has been against Kansas. So you can't blame them too much for that one. Mike Miles is a beast. He's going to get past Bradley in round 1. Next up, we do have Xavier going up against Utah Valley in the first round. Now, Xavier is a team that I believe has a very high ceiling, like Final Four level high ceiling if they can get Zach Fremantle back. But I also believe they have a really low floor. Like, I could see Xavier losing pretty early this year. Like, I'm talking losing first round, getting upset by Utah Valley. I could see it because Utah Valley is a team that has some senior guards on that team, a really good big man who's grabbing over 10 boards a game, who's going to be able to match up well there, Jack Nungy. And, you know, even though Xavier has some really good guards in Colby Jones and also Soli Boom, I really do feel like if they don't have Zach Fremantle, I might take Utah Valley right here as a 13 to upset the 4-seeded Xavier. I think that this upset could happen. Like I said, I think Xavier, high ceiling, low floor, and right now, no Zach Fremantle at the moment. I think they're vulnerable. I'm going to take Utah Valley to move on with a big-time upset. Next up, we do have Northwestern going up against either Mississippi State or Boise State in our first 4 game. And I am gonna have Boise State win this first 4 game. I mean, that would be an amazing matchup, must see first 4 game right there. But I'm gonna take Boise to get it done. But either way, I think I would take Northwestern over Boise and also against Mississippi State. I think Northwestern, they have been pretty good, you know, all year long. They've been playing really good in conference, good wins over teams like Indiana and Purdue. Boo Buie, you know, one of the best names in college basketball right there, but also a super underrated player in college basketball at the point guard position there for Northwestern, but he also has some help. They have really good guard play in general on that team. I'm taking Northwestern here to get by Boise State in the first round. Next up, we do have Arizona going up against UC Irvine. Now, this matchup right here is interesting. Here's the thing about Arizona. If they can get past like the first 2 rounds, I could see them making the Final Four. The only thing is, are they going to be able to get past those first few rounds? Because you look at all of their losses. They come in against teams like Washington State, Oregon, Arizona State, you know, due to a buzzer beater. But yeah, those buzzer beaters will happen also in March Madness. So I'm not sure if I can trust Arizona in March Madness. UC Irvine, I'm not too high on them. You know, I was kind of high on UC Santa Barbara. UC Irvine beat them. It seems like everybody's kind of beating each other there in that league. And I'm not really trusting whoever comes out of it to get a big win. And I am going to take Arizona here to get past round 1, although I think they are vulnerable given the right matchup to being upset in the first round. I'm going to take Arizona right here. Next up, we do have Providence going up against Memphis in the 7-10. This is must-see TV in the first round. 7-10, Providence, a really good, scrappy team. Memphis, an amazing team themselves. And here's the thing. I think Providence, they have the guards that are going to be able to help not shut down, but slow down Kendrick Davis in this game. I really like Noah Locke, Devin Carter, Bynum, like really good players who are going to play super hard on defense. And I think that overall as a team, Providence is better. I know Memphis has DeAndre Williams down low, and that's going to be a key factor. I really do like DeAndre Williams, but the thing is, Providence has Bryce Hopkins as well, who's going to be able to contradict that, and also Ed Croswell, who has also been playing really well as of late. So I believe that the front court, I'm leaning more towards Providence's side, and I do think Providence has the guards to be able to slow down Kendrick Davis. Now, there are other really good guards on this Memphis team, and I believe whoever wins this 7-10 matchup is going to have a really, really good shot at going on and defeating Baylor in the second round. But man, this would be must-see TV. I could see a buzzer beater happening in this game, double overtime, especially because both of these teams seem to have played in a decent amount of overtime games this season. It would be amazing, but I am going to go with Providence in this game. But I am going to go with Providence in this game. Providence, I really like their guard play, man. Bynum, he's just going to chase Kendrick Davis all over the court. You have Devin Carter, who could also do the same thing. Noah Locke. All these guys can hit mid-range buckets, create their own shot, hit the three ball, and you factor that along with their good front court, who's going to be able to stop DeAndre Williams and Bryce Hopkins and Ed Croswell. I like Providence's squad. I'm going to have them move on here. Next up, we do have Baylor going up against Eastern Washington. Now, Eastern Washington, a very solid team. I cannot lie, but I am going to have Baylor go ahead and defeat them. I mean, 3 NBA guards on this Baylor team. It's going to be tough to beat, and I'm going to have Baylor move on here. So let's move on to our next region. We do have the Kansas Jayhawks going up against Texas A&M, Corpus Christi, and Kansas. I'm going to have a win that matchup for sure. Kansas, one of the best teams in the country, and Daquan Harris Jr. has been playing outstanding lately. Jalen Wilson has been struggling as of late, but I still do believe he is one of the best players in the country. He just needs to turn it back around before March Madness. Next up, we do have Missouri going up against Rutgers in the 8-9 matchup, and I am going to go with Rutgers in this matchup. I just believe it's a tough matchup here for Missouri because I think Rutgers has the better front court for sure. There with Cliff Amorie, and I think Rutgers just plays really scrappy defense, and some players have been stepping up recently for them. And with Missouri's really good guards, I think Rutgers is going to be able to slow them down. And similar to, how Penn State has it, Rutgers just had an insane comeback victory over Penn State. Penn State has a lot of really good guards similar to Missouri. And Missouri's guards as a whole are probably a little bit better. They don't have a Jalen Pickett on their team, but I still think they're kind of similar, and I think Rutgers can play some really good defense on them and get past them in round 1. Next up, we do have St. Mary's going up against a 12-seeded VCU out of the A-10 conference, and VCU has actually been playing really well lately. I've talked about before, there's no consistent team in the A-10. Well, VCU, if they can come out of there, I could definitely see them potentially pulling off an upset. The only problem is they're going up against a very strong 5-seed, in my opinion, in St. Mary's, and I think there is a way they lose this one, but more times than not, I'm taking St. Mary's, and Logan Johnson has been playing really good as of late here for St. Mary's, and I really like St. Mary's guards. I'm taking the Gales to move on to the second round. Next up, we do have Virginia going up against Hofstra, and I don't like how Hofstra is always in Joe Lunardi's bracketologies, and I know they're very accurate, but Charleston needs to be in the bracket, man. I think Charleston's winning that league, and I know he has them as like the first 4 out to get in that large bid, but man, Charleston needs to be in this bracket because I would 100% take Charleston over Virginia in this matchup, but I am going to take Virginia to defeat Hofstra in the first round if that is the matchup. Next up, we do have Iowa State going up against Auburn in our 6 versus 11 seed, and Iowa State, they've been struggling lately. They just took a loss to West Virginia. But, I still believe that this team can turn it around come March. Right now, since we do these weekly, Iowa State is not playing good, but neither really is Auburn. Like, I don't know if I trust either one of these teams right now. And it would probably be a close game, but I do think Auburn has a really good defensive front court that's going to be able to slow down guys like a Sonny and Kunk. And, Iowa State's going to depend on their guards like they usually do. It just depends on if they have people that are hot, like if Gabe Kalitcher, Caleb Grill, Jaron Holmes, if these guys are hitting their shots, then Iowa State is going to be a very tough out come March Madness. But right now, I'm going to take Auburn just because I don't think Iowa State, they're going to be able to do it right now. And the way that they're playing right now, I don't think so, and Auburn also has a really good defense, so that's not going to make hitting those shots any easier. Give me Auburn to move on, 11/6 right there. Next up, we do have Gonzaga versus Toledo in our 3-14, and I actually really like Toledo. I wish they were a higher seed than a 14. Like, if they were going up against Virginia, I would like Toledo to win that one, but I am going to take Gonzaga here. I feel like Gonzaga is a little bit slept on this year, and I just don't know if they have the best guard play. I think their guard play has been underwhelming this year because they have guys that were supposed to be really good Strother, Hickman, and company, Malachi Smith off the bench, but in my opinion, they've been underwhelming, and I think they've really depended on Watson and Timmy to carry that team this year, and I think it will be enough to get by Toledo. I think it will be enough. We'll see if their guards can turn up in March Madness. Gonzaga is going to be a very dangerous team and a very tough out. Next up, we do have 7-seeded Maryland going up against 10-seeded West Virginia, and I'm going to take my favorite team. Maybe a little bit of bias here, but I have to take West Virginia to at least get by Maryland in the 10/7, and I also think Eric Stevenson, the way that he's been playing recently, man, he might take over a March Madness game or two and help West Virginia move on. And I'm going to take them to move on right here. West Virginia, a very deep team, a very good team. Joe Toussaint, he's going to be playing hard. This is a team that will play hard in March Madness. The only thing is Maryland, they also have a pretty solid squad, like a solid 5 that shares the ball really well and plays solid defense. That Maryland team, they're up and down. It depends on which team shows up because at their best, I think that they could definitely beat West Virginia, but also, like, they don't always play at their best. So we'll see how they come out. I'm going to take West Virginia behind an amazing shooting performance behind Eric Stevenson to get to the second round. Next up, we do have UCLA versus Youngstown State in the first round, and I am going to take UCLA here to move on. Jamie Jaquez has been a problem this year, an absolute beast, and also Tiger Campbell, a veteran point guard. You like to see those veteran point guards in the tournament. Jaden Clark has also been a very underrated piece to this UCLA team, and I have said this throughout the season, but I'm starting to really, really believe it. Now, when I say it, I think this UCLA squad is better than any of those past UCLA squads that had Johnny Juzang on them. This team is legit. So I have the Bruins moving on here to the second round. Our last region for the first round, we do have Purdue going up against either Howard or Farley Dickinson University, and I am going to have Purdue move on. So no 16s over 1s this year. If I had to pick between Howard and FDU, I'll go with Farley Dickinson here to get a win. Why not? But Purdue to move on to the round of 32. Next up, we do have Arkansas versus Pitt in the 8-9, and you guys know I'm very high on Arkansas, and I'm going to take Arkansas to win. And Pitt has a really good team, a really good backcourt. They have Burton on that team, who is a really, really solid player. They have Blake Henson, who has been playing an amazing lately. But I believe Arkansas, my favorite sleeper in March Madness right now. Nick Smith Jr. just came back, the top overall freshman of this class, and he has been playing outstanding lately against against really good teams. Against Alabama, he almost helped Arkansas beat them on the road. He's scored 20 his last few. We're actually going to be live tonight, so if you guys are watching this video on the day it comes out on Tuesday, we'll be live tonight watching Arkansas versus Tennessee on stream, so make sure you guys come tune out in for that one. But yeah, guys, I got Arkansas winning this game. Anthony Black, Nick Smith Jr., Jordan Walsh, that freshman trio, along with the Mitchell twins, along with some really good players. Ricky Council the fourth, who is an NBA player. Like Arkansas, they're really solid. My top sleeper right now. Next up, we do have Miami going up against Iona in the 5 versus 12. And Iona is an interesting 12 seed. And I know a lot of people maybe want to pick this upset because of Rick Pitino. And I'm not going to be able to do it. I have to go with Miami in this one because Miami, really, again, you got to trust those backcourts. Really good senior backcourts in college basketball are usually a good sign that they'll at least pick up a win or two, and Miami has that, man. Nigel Pack, a super good player, maybe not scoring as much as we thought he would when he transferred from Kansas State over to Miami, but he's been a great playmaker, a great leader on that team. Yeah, Isaiah Wong at the shooting guard position. You got Jordan Miller, all guys who can get a bucket, and that's good to have on the team. And they also have a really good big in Norchad Omier, the transfer from Arkansas State. So Miami, they are really good this year, and I can't have them losing to Iona right here. Next up, we do have UConn going up against Yale, our 13 seed, and honestly, Yale might be better than I thought they were, but I can't have them defeat UConn right here. UConn is so good, man. They're so deep, and they have so many good guards, so many good bigs. It's crazy. It's crazy how good this UConn team is, and if they live up to their full potential, they have national championship contention, or they can be national championship contenders if they live up to their full potential. As you guys know that if you guys been watching my channel, I think that UConn could potentially go far, even as a 4 seed. Ton of potential there. I'm having them move on past Yale. Next up, we do have Creighton going up against 11-seeded Nevada, and a good matchup here. Creighton has a solid squad, one of the best starting 5s in the country, with Ryan Nembhard, Ryan Kalkbrenner, Trey Alexander, Arthur Kaluma, and of course Baylor Shireman. And their bench has been getting better. And I could see Creighton potentially going pretty far this year. They did have an 0-2 week this past week against Villanova and Marquette. Villanova started a team that's starting to heat up all of a sudden since they've gotten Justin Moore back, but I got to take Creighton here in round 1 past Nevada. Nevada just lost to Wyoming yesterday, got upset there, but Nevada is a really good team and a really good defensive team, but I don't know if they're going to have enough defense to stop this really good Creighton team. Next up, we do have Tennessee going up against Furman, our 14 seed, and I'm not gonna lie, Furman, the Paladins here are maybe a really good sleeper to pull off an upset, and I think they get an amazing draw going up against Tennessee in the first round. And I'm not gonna sugarcoat it right here. I'm gonna go with Furman to pick up this upset, 14/3. This will be my biggest upset of this bracket, and I think it's going to happen. I think, the past few years we've seen 15/2s. I don't think we're going to see a 15/2. I know I took one last week, but that was more for fun. I think we will see a 14/3. It might not be as obvious as this one, because this one is just like a glaring red sign that says Furman is going to beat Tennessee. Like Furman, they have senior guards. They have a really good forward. They're a solid team for a 14 seed. And Tennessee has been choking a lot lately. Now, the only thing is they haven't really played, lost to a team as bad as like Furman. I mean, you could argue teams like Colorado, stuff like that. But I don't know. It's hard for me to make this pick still because Tennessee has a lot of potential when they're playing at their best. But I'm going to take Furman here to defeat Tennessee in round 1. Next up, we do have Michigan State going up against FAU in the 7 versus 10 matchup. This would be an amazing matchup. FAU has been one of the best mid-major teams all year long. They're such a good mid-major team. They're probably going to get an at-large bid if they don't win the Conference USA tournament. So that is very impressive by FAU in itself. The only thing is they're going up against Michigan State, and they have a good all-around lineup there at FAU, but I'm going to trust Tom Izzo in March. It's not often he loses in round one, and I'm going to take Michigan State and Sparty. Trust the Hall of Famer Tom Izzo, who is always so good in March with his game plans to get by Florida Atlantic in the first round. Next up, we do have 2-seeded Kansas State going up against Vermont as our 15 seed, and I'm going to take Kansas State here in this one. I do love Vermont as a program, but I got to take Kansas State here to move on to the second round. I'm a huge fan of Marquise Noel, of Keontae Johnson. I think that they are a very fun team to watch. They have guys that can hit big threes like Cam Carter, Ishmael Massoud, like really good players, really good role players on that team. I think that this is a type of team where players know their role, and if they execute that, the Tang Gang, their head coach Jerome Tang in his first year, moving on to the second round. So let's go ahead and make our second round picks and see who is going to be in our Sweet 16. So we do have Alabama going up against NC State in our first matchup, and NC State, really good guards in Smith and Joyner, like I said before, but Alabama is a team that has some really good guards as well, in Marcus Sears, and Mark Sears, and Javon Quinterly, and Bradley. Like, these are super good guards on this Alabama squad, and I'm not sure if anyone on NC State's going to be able to stop Brandon Miller. This is the type of matchup I could see Brandon Miller going for over 30. I'm going to take Bama to roll to the Sweet 16. Next up, we do have Oral Roberts going up against Indiana. I mean, I would love to see this matchup right here. Indiana versus Oral Roberts. Trace Jackson Davis versus 7'5" Connor Van Gover. That would be a matchup to see. Must-watch TV right here for sure. I almost need this matchup to happen, and we've seen Indiana has gone up against a 7-footer before, a 7'4" guy in Zach Edey, so a 7'5" guy here on Oral Roberts. That could be something similar. Of course, Connor Vanover is not as good as Zach Edey, but still, that is a big dude. And then, of course, you factor in that they have Maxi Buckets on their squad as well. And I really want to take Oral Roberts here to move on. And I know they're going to have Xavier Johnson, who's a really good defender. And Jalen Hood-Schifino has been hitting big shots down the stretch all year long now. It's tough, but I am going to go ahead and take Indiana. I'm going to take Indiana. I know everyone wants to see a big Oral Roberts run. I have them winning the first round, but I think Indiana's going to get it done here and make it to the Sweet 16. Next up, we do have Kentucky going up against Marquette, and very good matchup right here. Very, very good matchup. Very good matchup. So we have Tyler Kolek and Cam Jones as our backcourt there for Marquette. And then you got guys like Shavir Wheeler. You got Reeves. You got Kassan Wallace on Kentucky. Some really good guards there. And honestly, I really want to take Marquette in this matchup. Oscar Tshiebwe could be a problem in this one, though. I think that Oscar Tshiebwe could be a big problem for Marquette in this game. And if Kentucky is playing at their best, I think that they can pull off this upset. And Kentucky, I can't do it. I don't know if I can do it. I want to make this pick and pull off a 6/3 Kentucky upset. But I think Marquette's guards are too good. I think Tyler Kolek, Cam Jones, they have big games that help Marquette get past Kentucky in the second round. I really wanted to do it and pull the trigger on that one, but the more I thought about it, like Tyler Kolek has been playing out of his mind lately, not just scoring but playmaking. He's a super good passer, and like I keep saying, really good backcourts can win you a lot of games in March Madness, and I think that's what happens here for the Golden Eagles. Next up, we do have Duke going up against Texas, and as good as Duke is, I actually do feel like Duke is a good matchup for this Texas team because Duke has some really good defensive bigs that are going to be able to slow down Texas. And I, as soon as I saw this matchup, I was like, okay, I think Texas is going to win this matchup. But Jeremy Roach is a veteran point guard. He's going to be able to play his own really good defense against guys like Marcus Carr. Tyrese Hunter, he hasn't been as great as of late in Big 12 play, but will he be great in this one against the Duke Blue Devils? I'm not sure. I think if Texas wins this game, it would be because of Tyrese Hunter, because Duke, with Derek Lively, with Kyle Flipowski, with Mark Mitchell, like these are defensive guards that are not going to be out-athleted by Christian Bishop, by Dylan Mitchell, by Timmy Allen. Like these are bigs that are going to be able to play good defense on them. And for that reason, I'm actually going to have Duke pull off the upset over Texas. I think it's a bad matchup for Texas right there. And I don't think I trust, even though I think this Texas roster is super good, it takes a bad matchup like that and a off-shooting night from Tyrese Hunter and an off-scoring night from Tyrese Hunter for Duke to get by in this one, and a couple of big shots down the stretch by Jeremy Roach, and Duke moves on to my Sweet 16, upsetting two-seeded Texas. So let's go ahead and move on to our next region. We do have Houston going up against Illinois in our 1 versus 9 matchup, and this is a rematch from last year's, was it round of 32 or Elite 8, or round of 32 or Sweet 16 last year? I think it was a round of 32 5 versus 4 matchup last year, Houston versus Illinois, where Houston did win that game. And I think that this Houston team is a lot better than last year's Houston team. They have Marcus Sasser, who is one of the best players in the country. I'm going to take Houston to get by in this one, but I think that would be a really close game. TCU going up against Utah Valley. Can Utah Valley continue their run and maybe have a Cinderella to the Sweet 16? I want to pull that trigger, I really do, but I think TCU, they play really good defense, man, and they get out in transition. Mike Miles, Damian Ball, they have big games. Give me TCU here in this one. Next up, we do have Northwestern going up against Arizona, and here's the thing about this game that I thought of. See, Arizona loses to teams like Northwestern. Like, it's just kind of what they do, I feel like. And Northwestern, they've defeated teams with really good front courts like Indiana and Purdue, like teams with really good bigs. So you can't say that Arizona's bigs are just going to dominate Northwestern when Northwestern have stopped guys like Zach Edey and Trace Jackson Davis. I think that they can stop Turbellis and Ballo, so I'm going to say Northwestern behind maybe a late game-winning shot by Bowie get into the Sweet 16. How about them Wildcats? Nobody thought Northwestern was going to be anywhere near the tournament this year after they lost Pete Nance to the transfer portal, especially. And even with Pete Nance last year, they weren't that great. So out of nowhere, they've been playing outstanding this year. Northwestern moves on to the Sweet 16. Next up, we do have Providence going up against Baylor in this one, and okay, this would be an awesome matchup. And here's the thing, I really do feel like Baylor's weak spot will be playing against really good bigs like a Bryce Hopkins, like a Ed Croswell. I think that they could have some big games against Baylor, and also they could try to go shot for shot with these really good Baylor guards and Keontae George. I know he's injured right now, but Keontae George, hopefully for Baylor's sake, he'll be back for March Madness. But Keontae George, Adam Flagler, also LJ Cryer. Like I think that guys like Bynum, Locke, Devin Carter, they could try to go shot for shot with them. And if Baylor has a little bit of off shooting night, Providence, in my opinion, has the front court advantage there. So that's that's a tough one for me to pick here. Um, but I think I am going to go ahead and I'm gonna take Baylor. I'm gonna take Baylor here to win this game. I think that this could be a good matchup for Providence. It really could, and I think it's not gonna be easy for Baylor. They lost in the second round last year. I think they're going to get by this one in a very, very tight game. A very tight game. All right, our next region, we do have Kansas versus Rutgers in our round number 2. Now, Rutgers can give Kansas a little bit of a run for their money, like 100%. I could see Cliff Amorie really dominating the matchup between KJ Adams, but KJ Adams is not the type of guy who's just going to take that. He's going to be fighting back and not going to get completely dominated, but Cliff Amorie, I think, would win that matchup for sure. And I think that Kansas, even though Rutgers has a really good defensive team, if Jalen Wilson is on point, if Kevin McCullough is on point, if Daquan Harris is on point, and then you have Grady Dick, who's always on point from behind the three-point line, but if all those other three guys are, hitting their shots from three, I don't know if there's much defense Rutgers is going to be able to do in this one. I'm going to take Kansas to get this W. I just think that too good of shot making, and Daquan Harris has been amazing playmaking the ball recently and getting steals. It's going to be too much here for Rutgers. Give me Kansas to move on. Next up, I do have St. Mary's versus Virginia in the 5 versus 4. This would be a fun matchup. Both these teams like to play defense. Both these teams like to play in close games, especially Virginia. But I don't like the way that Virginia's been playing recently. They just lost 2 in a row this past week to Boston College and North Carolina. I'm going to take the Gales here, who have been playing pretty good. Yeah, they lost this week to Gonzaga, but Logan Johnson has been turning up. I think that this is a game St. Mary's pulls out beyond a big performance by him, and I really like St. Mary's guard play, so I'm going to take the Gales to move on to the Sweet 16. Next up, we do have Auburn going up against Gonzaga. This one right here is an interesting matchup because Auburn has a really good defensive front court, Johnny Broome and company, but Gonzaga there with Drew Timme, that's the matchup right there. Johnny Broome versus Drew Timme, who's going to win that matchup? And I think Gonzaga here, Drew Timme, he's, played in so many tournaments. I think he's going to want it. I think he's going to, even though Johnny Broome has amazing defense, he's going to be able to score. This is a game I could see Gonzaga's guards stepping up and actually playing well and outperforming Auburn's guards. So I'm going to take the Zags here to move on to the Sweet 16. Next up, we have my favorite team, West Virginia, going up against UCLA. And I actually do think that West Virginia could match up pretty well here with UCLA. The only problem is I think that UCLA's Tiger Campbell could be a matchup problem, and WVU does have some really good defensive guards, but I think his leadership and just his experience is going to help him a lot in this game. And I also think Jamie Jaquez is going to be a matchup problem for West Virginia because, yes, they do have Trey Mitchell, but I don't believe Trey Mitchell is the best defender, so I think they win that matchup. I really like UCLA's squad. I'm going to take them here to move on past WVU. Next up, we have one more Sweet 6 round of 32 region to do, and that is right here. And we do have Purdue versus 8-seeded Arkansas. And you guys know that Arkansas are one of my top sleepers this year, and I do believe that Purdue could be vulnerable in the first round. All of my other 1 seeds have made it to the Sweet 16. Will Purdue make it out alive as well? And in this matchup, I really do like Arkansas. I think they have much better guard play than Purdue, and I do like Braden Smith on Purdue and Fletcher Lawyer, but I think Arkansas's guard play with Nick Smith Jr., Anthony Black, Ricky Council IV, extremely outplays Purdue here in this matchup. And the Mitchell brothers, Jordan Walsh, they're going to have to play some really good defense on Zach Edey, and Zach Edey could have a day in this one still, but I am going to take Arkansas here to win this one and move on past Purdue. A big upset, 8-1. The only 1 seed that doesn't make it to the Sweet 16 is Purdue, and Purdue has been losing recently. Teams like Rutgers, Northwestern, Maryland, Indiana twice. So those all losses have all come recently. I like Arkansas in this matchup. I really do. Next up, we do have 5 versus 4 in Miami versus UConn, and this would be a great matchup. I think UConn, Sanogo, and Klingon can definitely dominate North Chad O'Meara down low, and I like that matchup for them. I also think that UConn has really good guard play, a lot like Miami, so I think UConn's going to be able to get past the Hurricanes there in that one. Next up, we do have Creighton going up against Furman here in this one, and this would be, can Furman make it to the Sweet 16 from the 14 seed? And here's the thing, Creighton has been prone to losing to some teams they probably shouldn't. Like, they lost to Nebraska this year. They've lost to Villanova here this past week. And yeah, those teams aren't Furman, but Furman does have a solid squad. And I really want to pick this upset right here. And I'm going to do it. I'm going to take Furman to defeat Creighton. I feel like Creighton, as good as of a team as they have, and as much as I wanted to see Creighton live up to that Final Four potential, they're just not doing it for me. They're just not doing it for me, and a lot of the times they like to slow down the ball, run a lot of shot clock, and force up a bad shot. And sometimes, Baylor Shireman or Ryan Nembhard, he'll hit that shot, but I'm not liking it. I think Furman, if they're coming off of a win versus Tennessee, they're going to be hot just a few days later. So give me Furman to move on to the Sweet 16. They are my Cinderella for this bracket. Next up, we do have Michigan State going up against Kansas State. Can Izzo pull off a big upset over Kansas State? The big matchup here would be Keontae Johnson versus Joey Hauser. I think it would be a fantastic game to watch. Marquise Noel versus Tyson Walker. And I could for sure see this upset actually happening. But I think Kansas State, Ishmael Massoud, he could have a big game shooting this one. Marquise Noel could have a big game shooting. And I've said this before. I think Kansas State and Marquise Noel, I think he could have a similar run to Carson Edwards' Purdue run. So I'm going to take Kansas State here to move on behind a big shooting performance by this Wildcat team. So we have our Sweet 16 set. Let's get on to our Elite Eight picks. So we do have Bama in our first matchup going up against Indiana, our 4 seed. So a 1 versus 4 here in this one. And Trace Jackson Davis, he could dominate this game, but so couldn't Brandon Miller. And I'm thinking Brandon Miller has a big game in this one. I really am thinking he has a big game in this game, and behind maybe a game winner by Brandon Miller, or maybe they win by quite a bit. I'm going to take Alabama in this matchup. I think they're just a better team, and we've seen Indiana. Yes, they did sweep Purdue this year, but when they've gone up against teams like Kansas and Arizona, they just have not been able to play to that level. And I think it's going to be a similar situation here. I don't think Indiana's going to be able to play to Alabama's level. I think Indiana's a solid Sweet 16 pick, but whenever they have to play a team like Alabama, I don't think they're going to be able to get past them. Next up, we do have Marquette going up against Duke in this matchup, and I like Marquette. I like Tyler Kolek and Cam Jones, even though Jeremy Roach is a good veteran on this Blue Devils team. That Marquette backcourt is scary, and they're really good. And you factor in they have some really good forwards on that team as well that can shoot the rock. I'm going to take Marquette here in this one because they're forwards. They can stretch the floor. They can try to get some of those good defensive bigs of Duke out of the paint. And I like Marquette to win this one and move on to the Elite Eight. Next up, we do have Houston going up against TCU in a battle of Texas. Now, this would be a fun one. Mike Miles going up against Marcus Sasser at the shooting guard battle. Extremely fun. You got Damian Ball versus Jamal Sheed. You got Eddie Lampkin, who might be guarded by Jarris Walker, maybe sometimes, so that would be fun. But I think, Eddie Lampkin's going to have to guard Jarris Walker out on the three-point line. And I really do like Houston guys like Mark Roberts. These are guys that are 3-and-D players. I think that they're better than guys like Emmanuel Miller on TCU's team. Very good game. This would be one of the games of the tournament, in my opinion. I know I said a lot of these games would be really good, but usually most games are. And this one specifically would be amazing, but I think Houston has it and are going to move on to the next round here in the Elite Eight. Next up, we do have Northwestern going up against Baylor here in this one. And I think I'm going to have, Northwestern, as good of guards as they have, I think this is the type of game. I don't really like the matchup for them because Baylor's weakness is more big. So I think if they can get past Providence, they can get past Northwestern. I'm going to have Baylor here win this one. And Boo Buie could have a good game, but he's going up against three guys that are really good in Keontae Johnson, Adam Flagler, and LJ Cryer. One of them are going to go off for a monstrous game. And I'm going to have Baylor move on in this one to the Elite Eight. So we have our top region set for the Elite Eight. Let's get to our bottom region. So we do have Kansas versus St. Mary's here in this one. And St. Mary's, another team that I believe could give Kansas a little bit of a run for their money. This St. Mary's team, I could see them playing a similar way to how Tennessee played Kansas early on in the year, but this Kansas team has improved a lot since that Tennessee game. I think St. Mary's, Logan Johnson, I've been talking him up. He's an outstanding player there for the Gales. I think he could still have a good game, but Kansas just too good. I'm going to have the Jayhawks move on in this one. Next up, we do have Gonzaga going up against UCLA in a 3-2 seed. And this is a fun matchup because Gonzaga-UCLA has kind of been a recent rivalry. At least it has felt like one, especially after that insane game winner by Jalen Suggs in the 2021 Final Four. Half-court heave in the Final Four to win it and send Gonzaga to the championship game. Over the Johnny Juzang UCLA team. Would be a great game. And I have been talking up both of these teams and looking at how they match up. I think I'm actually going to trust UCLA's guard play with Tiger Campbell, with Jaden Clark, with Amari Bailey, the freshman. I think I'm going to take them over Gonzaga's guards, who I have said before have been underwhelming, and I trust UCLA's guards to be able to, with their veteran leadership behind Tiger Campbell, get past Gonzaga. And Drew Timme is the guy who could have a game in this one. They're going to have to send some doubles his way. And if he kicks it out and his guards aren't hitting shots, then that'll do it right there. UCLA will win and move on to the Elite Eight. Next up, we do have Arkansas going up against UConn here in this matchup. You guys know that I have been very, very high on UConn. very high on them, right? Sanogo, Klingon, Caravan, Andre Jackson Jr., Hickman, Tristan Newton. Like, these are all super good players, but here's the thing, all it takes for UConn to potentially lose is Andre Jackson not playing at his best, and UConn has been playing super good as of late. Super good as of late, but every once in a while they have a game and it's like, what are they doing? Andre Jackson has a bad game. Um, this is a team I do believe has Final Four potential, championship level potential, but Arkansas, I've had them on a big run, and I'm going to continue that one and have them defeat UConn right here and move on to the Elite Eight. I think Anthony Black, Nick Smith Jr., these are guys who can have big games. These are guys who can try, I could see them having good defensive performances against guys like Hickman, Jordan Hawkins, on UConn, because Jordan Hawkins is a guy I could see trying to take over with some big shots. And I think if Sanogo, he could be vulnerable to getting stopped. And if Arkansas had a really good game plan for Purdue and Zach Edey, they can have a good game plan for Sanogo. And an off-shooting night by UConn is all it's going to take. And with a scrappy defense like Arkansas, they play tough defense. I could see them getting it done and defeating UConn, and also a big. I think this one would be a little bit low scoring, but I think guys like Ricky Council IV and maybe even Jordan Walsh could step up big and hit some big shots, drive the ball, and get them to the Elite Eight in this one. Next up, we do have my Cinderella of this bracket, Furman, going up against Kansas State here in this one. And I am going to have Kansas State in Furman's run. Like I said, Kansas State, I think I could see Marquise Noel having a type of run like a Carson Edwards did, and take his squad to the Elite Eight behind some amazing shooting. Furman, if they get to the Sweet 16, they're not going to go down easy, but I think it could be like a late game lob from Marquise Noel to Keontae Johnson, slams it, and that will be the dagger Wildcats to the Elite Eight. So our Elite Eight is set, and we do have Alabama versus Marquette in our first matchup, and this would be a amazing game. All of these Elite Eight games would be must-watch TV, and when are they not? Always the Elite Eight is must-watch TV. But here we have it. We have Alabama versus Marquette. Winner gets to the Final Four, and this would be great. Nate Oates going up against Shaka Smart here in this battle. Two really good young head coaches, fairly young head coaches anyway, and it would be a battle. Really good guard play, really good forward play on both sides. And this is really the first matchup for Alabama where I can say Brandon Miller could have a tough time, because I think that Iggy, Prosper, like whoever's going to be guarding Brandon Miller, could be able to try to slow him down here in this game, because those are pretty good defenders there for the Golden Eagles. So that is a big plus to Marquette in this matchup. Tyler Kolek, Cam Jones, even Mitchell going up against Quinterly, who Quinterly I'm not a big fan of myself, but I am a big fan of Bradley and of Mark Sears, and I actually give the edge to Marquette in those matchups. I think Tyler Kolek, he's been on a tear recently. Cam Jones, whenever he's hot, he can shoot. He makes some crazy drives where he can get acrobatic in the air. I like Marquette here to move on to the Final Four. Let's go and upset one-seeded Alabama in their region. Marquette, a 3-seed, is our first ticket punch to the Final Four. Next up, we do have Houston versus Baylor, and another Battle of Texas. This region runs through Texas with Baylor, Houston, TCU. Some really good teams here, and this would be a battle. Marcus Sasser, Jamal Sheed, Mark, going up against Keontae Johnson, or not Keontae George, excuse me, LJ Cryer, Adam Flagler. All those guys can hit some big shots, and usually it only takes two of them to be hot and be able to be hitting their shots that day for Baylor to get a win. I think to defeat Houston, it's going to take all three of them to be hot and hitting their shots, because I do believe guys like Jarris Walker and Roberts, they could be problems at the forward positions. I know Jalen Bridges there for Baylor. He has been stepping up a little bit recently and playing really good defense, really embracing his role. But I'm not sure if, I actually think that him and Roberts actually play very similar. I would think Roberts, I'd give him the advantage in that one, but I do think it is Houston's front court that helps get by Baylor. I think that Houston does get by this one and punch their ticket to the Final Four. I just think Baylor, they don't have that great of a front court. I think Flo Thamba, I expected him to improve this year. He really hasn't. And Flo Thamba, he's decent, but I think Houston can have their way in the paint in this game. And both these teams play some scrappy defense. Houston maybe plays a little bit scrappier. I'm going to take the Cougars to move on to the Final Four. You guys know I'm a big fan of Houston this year. Well, not a fan personally, but I just love to watch them play. They're so good. Kansas versus UCLA for our third ticket in the Final Four. Really good matchup right here between Jamie Jaquez and Jalen Wilson. Would be awesome to watch. You got KJ Adams going up against Bona, a freshman versus sophomore in that matchup. You got Amari Bailey and Jalen Clark going up against McCullar and Daquan Harris and Grady Dick going, Daquan Harris going up against Tiger Campbell. That would be a treat to watch, because both those guys are veteran point guards who want to lead their team to victory. And I think I give the advantage to Daquan Harris over Tiger Campbell. I think it's kind of close. Tiger Campbell, not as flashy on the stats. Really, neither one of them are. But I feel like Daquan Harris is more well known about like his steals per game, his assists per game, whereas Tiger Campbell is more of just a leader and is very valuable to his team, especially in this time in March Madness. But I think I give the advantage to Daquan Harris Jr. in that matchup. As far as Grady Dick and Amari Bailey, the freshmen there, I think Grady Dick is the better freshman. I like Kansas in this matchup, and this is a game where I could see actually KJ Adams having a big game and leading Kansas to make the Final Four and punch their ticket. So 3 tickets are punched. We have a 3 seed and 2 1 seeds. Next up, we have in our final Elite 8 matchup an 8 seed in Arkansas going up against the 2-seeded Kansas State. Will we see 2 Big 12 teams in? Will we see 2 Kansas teams in if Kansas State gets in? Where will we see Arkansas go up from the 8 seed and make it to the Final Four? So we do have Arkansas here versus Kansas State, and Anthony Black, that's a lot of size at your point guard position that is going to be put on Marquise Noel. And here's the thing. I think if Arkansas is getting past Purdue and UConn, going up against Kansas State, they match up really well against Kansas State. And I think it'll take a lot for them to get past Purdue and UConn. But if they do that, they actually really do match up really well with Kansas State's, because I think that's a lot of length on Marquise Noel, and Marquise Noel has shown out some games where he's a little bit off. He's still a good playmaker, but that is a lot of length on defense between Anthony Black, Ricky Council the fourth, between Nick Smith Jr. even is a lot bigger than Marquise Noel, and I think that all those guards are going to be key. I'm going to have Arkansas advance here in past Kansas State and make it to the Final Four from the 8th seed. Let's go. My biggest sleeper right now makes the Final Four in Arkansas. And also Keontae Johnson, he's going to have some tough matchups between the Mitchell brothers, who you know are going to be playing hard, between Jordan Walsh down low. Like, Arkansas's got it, man. And that matchup, I really do like the Razorbacks to make the Final Four. First Final Four for Eric Musselman after 2 straight Elite Eights the past couple of years. So, our Final Four is set. We have a 3 seed in Marquette out of the Big East. We do have a 1 seed in Houston out of the AAC. We do have a 8 seed in Arkansas out of the SEC. And we do have a 1 seed in Kansas out of the Big 12. So, a really fun Final Four here. And our first matchup is Marquette versus Kansas State. Now, 2 of the best passers in college basketball between Tyler Kolek and Daquan Harris Jr. going at it right here. And I think Tyler Kolek is probably the better scorer as far as creating his own bucket between him and Daquan Harris. But I think that Daquan Harris is the better defender. So I think they kind of cancel each other out right there. Cam Jones and Grady Dick, both super good shooters at the shooting guard position. Great matchup right there. You got guys like Iggy and Prosper who are going to be matched up with KJ Adams and Jalen Wilson. And this would be, and Kevin McCullar. I think Kevin McCullar could be the difference in this game. But wow, what a matchup. When you really break down the starting fives in this game, they go like matchup for matchup. And I think Kevin McCullar is the matchup here that gives Kansas the advantage and gives Kansas the edge to win this one, get past Marquette, and make it to the Natty. So we have Kansas in the national championship versus either Houston or 8-seeded Arkansas. And that would be a scrappy game. Eric Musselman versus Kelvin Sampson, both really good defensive head coaches that, always have these teams that play super, super scrappy. So this game is going to be scrappy. I think this game would be in the 60s on the final score, a very close one. But I think Houston gets past them in this one because Houston is the type of matchup for Arkansas where they also have a lot of length, and I think they might have more size as well. So I'm going to take Houston here in this one, and I think that Houston is probably even the better defensive team. So give me the Cougs to move on to the championships. So in my opinion, these 2 teams right here are the best 2 teams in the country right now. You could argue Alabama. I think that between Houston, Kansas, and Alabama, those are the top 3 teams in the country as of right now, in my opinion. No doubt about it. I have 2 of them in my championship right here. And it would be an amazing matchup. Daquan Harris Jr., talk about him again, going up against Jamal Sheed. I give the advantage to Daquan Harris. You got Marcus Sasser going up against Grady Dick. I think Marcus Sasser, he could cause some problems there for Grady Dick. But if Grady Dick can still hit some big shots, that would be huge. But Marcus Sasser, very good defender. That's going to be tough there on the freshman. Forwards, as far as forwards, you've got a lot of 3-and-D guys that are going to be able to guard Jalen Wilson, like Roberts, like Mark, and they're going to be able to move on them. And then Jarris Walker going up against KJ Adams. Those are 2 really good athletes going at it. Jarris Walker, a freshman, KJ Adams, a sophomore, but Jarris Walker is going to be able to stretch out the paint, and Houston's going to be able to actually go small ball a little bit against Kansas because Kansas's big is KJ Adams, and I think Jarris Walker matches up against KJ Adams really well, so they're going to actually be able to go small ball, put Walker in at the center position, and man, I think Houston, they match up really well against Kansas. I think they could actually play some really good defense on Jalen Wilson. I think that this game is all going to depend on Jalen Wilson's performance. Like, I think if Jalen Wilson and also Grady Dick, if they can score on this really good defense that Houston's going to be playing on them, I think Kansas would win. I think Kansas would win if Grady Dick is hitting shots over Marcus Sasser. And if Jalen Wilson can fight through those tough, lengthy defenders, defensive forwards on this Houston team, I think Kansas would win, but the only problem is Jalen Wilson hasn't been playing that great lately, and Kansas has still been winning because of it, which is why I think if he does play good, Kansas would win this game. But because he hasn't really been performing that well, I do have to go with Houston. And I know I've picked Houston a lot in my brackets, but I am so high on them winning right now. I have the Cougars winning this one again. Maybe next week I'll switch it up depending on what happens, but they are playing so good right now, and they are my favorites to win the national championship right now. So I do have Houston as my 2023 national champions, winning the championship in the city of Houston, where the Final Four is hosted this year. So that is going to do it for this video. Let me know what you guys think about my picks down below in the comment section. Let me know who your guys' champion is right now, and if you want to, let me know who your Final Four is based on this bracket. But that is going to do it for this one. Again, let me know what you guys think. Subscribe if you guys are new, and thank you so much for watching.